Hello lovely people, I'm back today to talk to you about what exactly is high vibrational food. So yesterday I showed you how to set up a lovely sprouting seeds in a jar, and you know basically can have this very nutrient dense food that is still living, because it's growing, it's still growing in the jar. And I've just taken it out the fridge so you can see, but I had a really good question about where they go after the 4 or 5 days of sprouting and turning green by the window. And so I thought I'd kind of just clarify that just in case people are wondering about that. And it was a very good question that was put on yesterday's video. So basically, after the 4 or 5 days of keeping it on the windowsill, letting it grow and go green like I've done here, then you need to make sure that it's fully drained of water. So obviously this no longer has water in it, but it's damp. It's damp, and then it's kept in the fridge where it continues to be just the perfect conditions to keep it going fresh. It won't go off so long as you don't have it sitting in water. Yes, you gotta make sure that the water is drained out. So the jar that I set up yesterday is here. Here it is. Yeah, got 24-hour soaked it and drained all the water out of it. So there's actually a bit of water in that tray, and then I've covered it with that little sort of covering that I showed you yesterday, and it's a really nice kind of late it's one of these stretchy fabrics sort of thing that you go kind of like diving in. It's that kind of material anyways, that sort of water suit material. And so now it's just sitting in the dark. Yep, so the seeds have split. And oh, do say hello. You're here. If you're here with me, say hello. It'd be nice to know who's here. And if you have any questions, you saw my video yesterday, feel free to come forward with some questions live and I can answer them here. But yes, so there we go. I've got the little cover on it. So this is going to be basically for the rest of today. It'll probably be ready to come off tomorrow. So I've got it sitting on my tray in the dark. Yeah, so it's in the dark. I keep it in a little dark corner here in the kitchen, and that's it. So by the end of this week, I'm gonna have possibly another one by the end of this week or over the weekend. It looks like this might just about last me until next week. Anyway, so yes, once that's done and they've all grown, the jar gets kept in the fridge. Okay, I just wanted to clarify that because it was a very good question. Sometimes when you're doing these lives, some things don't always, come to mind at the time that you're saying them. So, right, today, talking about high vibrational foods. Let me know if this is an interest of yours, if you think, or what you think high vibrational food is. What do you kind of perceive that as being? And as I'm talking here, I can, go into some examples of it. So I just showed you one. One example is sprouted seeds. So sprouted seeds are considered living. They're still living, because they're growing, and so they're highly dense in nutrients, particularly essential nutrients. But the other nutrients that don't always get accolades, but are really, really important. And in fact, we need a lot of these to support our body's ability to metabolize and absorb essential nutrients are some of the antioxidants. Okay, so sometimes when we overcook food, we lose the some of the essential nutrients, or not all of them, but you know, we lose some, and it depends on the level of cooking. So I'm not going to go into too much detail about that. But I do want to stress the importance of maintaining and retaining as much of the essential nutrients and antioxidants in the foods that you do eat as much as possible. So high vibrational foods are in essence nutrient dense. They're very rich in essential nutrients, and in many cases, like the sprouted seeds, they are high in antioxidants that really help us combat or avoid the risk of illnesses and certain diseases, you know, taking hold of our bodies. The other really important aspect to high vibrational food is that it tends to be very unprocessed, or as fresh and in its natural state as much as possible. So when we're talking about other types of foods other than sprouted seeds, you're looking at fresh seasonal fruits and veg, for example. So one might question, you know, if you're eating a mango, for example, which doesn't grow in North America, right? As far as I know, mangoes come from generally places either in South America or in Asian countries, right, or Pacific countries. They are where you get mangoes, and of course they have their seasonal growth, and so we are getting them at a time when it's being grown in another part of the world. So essentially it is more beneficial to be eating those things that are growing locally, seasonally, and you know, there's nothing wrong with obviously having a mango that comes from, you know, the other side of the planet, or south, you know, of us, because obviously they you know, that's where they grow, and this is where a lot of citrus fruits come from. They come from somewhere else. But then if I were to say to you, you know, things like oranges and lemons, yeah, certain countries grow these in North America, actually. Obviously, you've got your, you know, California orchards, and then in Europe, you've got Spain and Portugal grow their own citrus fruits. You know, so it is local to them. But if you're then living in Canada, for example, which is where I am at the moment, the closest thing to that is having things like rose hips. I know people wouldn't actually go to the shop and buy those, but this is where wild and foraged options can also be introduced to perhaps your shopping list. But it would be more of a going for a walk, and if you find them, you hope you pick them. Rose hips actually have a higher percentage of vitamin C than any citrus fruit on the planet. So you can get more vitamin C from a rose hip bud, right? So that's after the rose has fallen. And I would like to stress the fact that these are either wild-grown roses, yeah. So not the ones that you would treat or put any kind of rose treatment on them. Yeah, so you are looking at what I'm talking about are the wild growing. Some of them are trailing roses, aren't they? They grow in hedges and things like that. I remember seeing quite a lot of them in the UK. Many hedgerows have these beautiful wild rose bushes that sort of intertwine into the hedges, and picking those was something that I used to enjoy doing, because obviously once the roses were gone, and it would really be around September, October time when they were ready, and lo and behold, nature has basically got one of the most highly dense berries, so there's rosehip berry with vitamin C, which we all need, obviously, as we're coming into winter and we want to maintain our vitamin C to ward off colds and flus and all sorts of other things like that, to just help boost our immune system. So that's just one of those. Other high vibrational foods are obviously your nuts and seeds, and so they, in essence, the way they come off the trees, or the way they come off the flowers, in some cases plants, those are considered high vibrational foods. Yeah, because they are in their natural state, and you shell them and then you eat them raw. You can just eat them raw, or people, once you then start to turn them into something like a nut milk or a seed milk, then you're just processing them. So that's a first level of processing, and that's still considered okay, because you're going from fresh, from its natural state, into 1 degree of processing. The next one would be something like grass-fed beef or livestock, basically grass-fed livestock. So livestock that's been allowed to be out in nature and walk around, retain and get sunlight, natural sunlight. This benefits the animal and makes it healthy, so that therefore that health, that good health of the animal is then passed down to the person who's consuming the meat from that animal. This includes free-range chickens. Yeah, so chickens allowed to run around and be out there, scratching around, foraging for their own food, getting some sunlight, and being out in the fresh air. Again, that makes a big difference to how that animal will then taste moving onto the plate. Wild caught fish, again, high vibrational food. Why? Because it's wild. It's had its full life phases, and then when it's caught, obviously with proper wild caught fish, there's limitations in terms of sizing, and there's a very good reason for that. We don't want to overfish, so that the adults mature to be able to produce their offspring, and so they've had full circle, and it becomes a very healthy and tastier option than a lot of force-fed and livestock that ends up, not growing or having those growing conditions. Okay, so why is it important to have this high vibrational food? Well, for one reason, is the benefit to it physically So it supports all our systems. So the higher the vibration, the food, yeah, the more nutrient densities, the more antioxidants it has, and therefore the more that it will support our systems. So obviously, if we're thinking about protein, then we're looking at, you know, our maintaining our muscle health, and tendons and, you know, ligaments health. We need to be able to do that. And then, of course, it's about supporting or feeding the good bacteria that is in our body. And our body is made up of more bacteria than we actually realize. And it's not just in the gut. I mean, the gut is where, you know, a lot of it begins when we're ingesting food and having our amazing gifts from nature, yeah, because that's where it starts off, not just from the shop around the corner. And so it feeds the good bacteria in our body, which helps us produce the hormones, the enzymes, and the chemicals that helps us to then break down that food and use it to maintain this body that we have. Okay, so it's really important to do that. And obviously, the more processed the food is, the less devoid of nutrients and antioxidants there is in highly ultra processed food. Okay, so that's something to bear in mind, okay, when you're making your choices. It also elevates energy levels mentally. So when we're looking at, you know, choosing high vibrational foods, you are going to find that they uplift more and make you feel good. And I put the question to you, so some of you might be watching this. You might think, okay, it might make you feel good to go to a takeaway and or, you know, fast food chain and, you know, order whatever, you know, and biggie the fries. So without making any comments on anyone in particular, you might know who I'm talking, what chain I'm talking about. But actually, that food is so overly processed that it has very little, if any, essential nutrients in it or antioxidants that you, that like I've been talking about, that our body needs to maintain our health over a long period of time. So the real feel-good food are high vibrational foods. Those are the foods that are going to really help our brains with the neurotransmitters that they need. And by the way, most of the neurotransmitters that we need to make ourselves feel good are actually created in the gut. So if you're not looking after your gut biome, if you're not doing anything to take care of that gut biome, we're going to be deficient in serotonin, yeah, in the just looking for the dopamine fix. So hence the addictions to sugar that come in. And so high vibrational food then is all about maintaining that gut biome to the best of your ability, and that is where you're going to feel good, and mentally you're going to feel good. So not just physically, but mentally you're going to feel good, because serotonin, yeah, our feel good, one of our feel good, we've got many, one of our feel good molecules is up to 90% actually created in the gut. So leave that one with you. If you're not looking after your gut biome and eating high vibrational foods, which are feeding that microbiome to make them grow and fully populate your gut to help you produce these neurotransmitters that we need to make us feel good, then the feel good factor that you might be feeling might be just in your head, not really in your body. Okay, so the last point that I really want to make, so feel free to come and say hello if you're here with me. But yeah, so the last bit that I wanted to touch on is that spiritually we are connected. So by eating high vibrational food, it helps us to connect on a deeper level to nature, to ourselves. So some of you might be familiar because of your own work on your own self-care journey. You are on this beautiful journey of becoming more empowered and tuning in to your own truth. And so allowing yourself to consume, because what we eat becomes us. Yeah, so what we consume, what we decide to put into our bodies, what the food that we choose to eat becomes us. So that old age, that comment that you are what you eat is totally true, not to be ignored. And so when you start to look at it from that perspective, if you are what you eat, and you're eating foods that are not very high vibrationally, then be prepared to have to deal with a lot of conditions, disease being one of them, certain illnesses, and your energy levels will be low and drop quite a bit. So you might find that you're a bit more lethargic, or, you know, brain fog might be coming in, or you're finding concentrations a bit, memories a bit, dodgy. And so I suggest perhaps before, dropping into the GP, but of course it's a good idea to go and see the GP, have a think about, what it is that you are consuming. What are your meals consisting of? And if you can find a way to include high vibrational foods in some way, shape or form, even in a small little way, like I said, yesterday I showed you how to grow sprouts right in your kitchen counter, and it's so simple. You don't have to do very much to do that. It's then an easy way to incorporate some of these nutrients with the meals you're already preparing. Yeah, having a little handful of these sprouts on top of a salad, or with your salad, or on the side of your meal, breakfast, lunch. Okay, so I hope you found this useful, and I can go on at length, probably talking a little bit more in depth about things that I've mentioned today. But if you're interested in hearing more, or you're more curious about anything that I've said, please do write it in the comments, and I will make sure that on my next video, or as I continue to do these lives, I answer those questions or elaborate on some of what I've said. I'd also like your opinions on some of what I've said, so drop them in the comments, and I will leave it there. I'm going to wind down this video now, and thank you all for watching. See you tomorrow.